Vivienne Westwood is a designer made famous by her association with the punk movement and her early career ties to the Sex Pistols. Those into fashion are sure to be familiar with her logo, as her pearl necklaces and corsets have enjoyed a resurgence in popularity in recent years. She's known for being against excessive consumerism and promoting education as well as environmental conscientiousness. Although Vivienne Westwood undoubtedly loves self-expression and enjoys wearing interesting clothes, she's not a big fan of the fashion industry itself and how it can feed into an endless cycle of consumption. That's why one of the messages she repeatedly puts out is that we should buy less. The clothes that she has created have taken on a life of their own and have come to represent both luxury and counterculture sentiments. She's undoubtedly a legend within the fashion industry, but today, we're not going to talk about her impact on fashion. Instead, we are going to take a look at one of her more explicitly political statements, a manifesto titled Active Resistance to Propaganda, in which she claims that art can save the world from the climate crisis. We'll be discussing excerpts from it in this video, but if you'd like to read the full text, the link is in the description box below. This manifesto is her attempt to attack what she considers to be the root of our climate crisis, propaganda and consumerism. It's written as a play between a crazy cast of characters, including Aristotle and Pinocchio, and it's meant to have a sort of Alice in Wonderland feel to it. It's also possible, although she never says so directly, that it's written as a conversation rather than a straightforward essay, in order to imitate the style of ancient Greek philosophers, and there are quite a few philosophers referenced as characters in the play. She starts out by making the claim that her writing penetrates to the root of the human predicament and offers the underlying solution, which is a pretty ambitious task to take on, and it's in keeping with her vibrant and unwavering energy. Maybe it's because she's an Aries, but bold statements, whether in fashion or in conversation, seem to be on brand for her. She also expresses a desire to keep mankind from becoming the victim of our own cleverness, which is a sentiment you can hear expressed pretty often, but something it calls to mind specifically is Taoism, in which cleverness is considered to be a trap created by the ego. Whether the reference is intentional or not, this seems to be a sentiment she shares with the East Asian philosophy. The purpose of this manifesto seems to be combating climate change, but very little is said in the text about things like policy changes. Instead, she focuses on identifying the problem, rather than what you could consider to be symptoms of the problem. So what is it that Vivienne Westwood wants us to rally against? If the fact that the manifesto is titled Active Resistance to Propaganda wasn't a big enough hint, this essay singles out propaganda as its main target. She defines propaganda as being made up of three constituents or parts: nationalistic idolatry, nonstop distraction, and organized lying. The first page or so is dedicated to identifying the problem of consumerist culture, which to her is false progress and the pursuit of unlimited profit. It can be summed up by this exchange between the characters Pirate and AR, or Active Resistance. Pirate says, "Leave everything to me, I plunder for you. Stick with me and you might get a share of the bounty. My name is Progress." And Active Resistance replies, "But you have stolen imagination. There is hardly anyone left now who believes in a better world. What is the future of unlimited profit in a finite world?" She claims that we live in a society that prizes endless distraction and forward motion, but that the progress that we make is an illusion and isn't tied to authentic cultural growth. It seems an obvious reference to things like fast fashion. The endless cycle of trends ushered in to keep us feeling like we are presented with more choices than ever, while fueling a system of creation, consumption, and waste, has been the subject of a lot of critique in recent years. It's why we've seen a rise in popularity in ethical fashion brands and sustainable practices, but even those have become buzzwords that are marketed back to us. As a result, we now have the new concern of brands claiming to practice sustainability that, in reality, do not. A lot of emphasis has been placed on the consumer's responsibility to shop smart and reduce their personal waste, but these efforts often feel undermined by the fact that individuals are not the major contributors to climate change. Companies are the major driving force behind the climate crisis and are the ones positioned to make the most impactful dramatic change. But getting these companies to prioritize ethics over profit seems next to impossible. It brings us back to the question she posed. What is the future of unlimited profit in a finite world? She doesn't try to answer this for us, but it's safe to say we have enough post-apocalyptic imaginings to draw from. We've all seen Jurassic Park after all.
Boy, no, I hate being right all the time.
But now that she's identified the problem, she presents us with the supposed solution, and this is what the majority of the text focuses on. According to Westwood, culture is the cure or the antidote to propaganda, but the problem is that we often mistake propaganda for culture, or have been led to believe a constant stream of new content and things created to maximize profit are what we should be focusing on. So what is true culture? To answer that question, Westwood examines art. Throughout the course of the essay, she describes art as a few things: a microcosm, a mirror, an imitation, and a whole. Philosophers and gatekeepers alike have all tried to define art from time to time for different reasons. But perhaps the reason Westwood seeks to define it can be best summed up by this section of dialogue between the characters Active Resistance and Alice. Active Resistance says, "One can begin to grasp something of the obsession people have had with the idea of the circle as a perfect form. A work of art, then, is an imitation reduced to its essentials, thereby forming a whole as in a microcosm. Real life cannot give the complete picture. It is a jumble of particulars in which events are engulfed in the flux of chaos. How can the artist see things as they really are when he himself is a part of the change? He needs a fixed fact to stand on." And Alice replies, "Tell me all about it. If there's nothing fixed in the world, then you find yourself in Wonderland where everything changes, including yourself, and you try to play a game of croquet with a flamingo for a mallet and the ball is a hedgehog who runs away." The value of art, then, is that it gives a sense of concrete reality, which would arm us against a feeling of being adrift in chaos. Or, in other words, it helps us make sense of the world around us. According to this logic, we need art for the same reason that we need clocks. Time is something that we feel very secure in as a concrete facet of reality, but without clocks, time is revealed to be very made up. If one day all clocks disappeared, then time would disappear. It wouldn't stop aging or anything, but the concept of time as we've set about organizing it up till now would have to be thrown out the window. We could guess what time we thought it was, but our guesses would be subject to our changing environments and moods. If you were tired, for example, you might be inclined to guess that the time was later than it really was. Art does for the intangible aspects of our society, like values and beliefs and shared experiences, what clocks do for time. It offers us an object that remains unchanging to anchor us to a perception of reality that our otherwise unreliable human nature would attempt to reinvent at the beginning of each day were it left to its own devices. This is the same idea at work at the core of philosophies that preach creating your own reality. Since we can never truly take in all of the world at once and gain an objective, unchanging picture of reality, our focus has to be on the microcosm, which can be used to focus in on any number of perspectives. So this is the value of art and the reason that Vivienne Westwood ascribes so much importance to it. But the power of imitation doesn't stop at helping us to understand the world around us by imitating it on a smaller scale. It also helps us to understand the people around us by imitating them. The character Art Lover describes the process like this: "I'd like to tell you my idea of imitation. It's when we jump outside ourselves, leave our own preoccupations and ego behind, and see things through other eyes. Know what it feels like to be someone else. Empathy, kindness. I like to think that everything we know has its source in human kindness." As Westwood points out, we can gain knowledge of life through the artist's knowledge of life. We can learn from the experiences of others when they're shared with us. This is how she describes empathy: the ability to step outside of one's own perspective and look at things the way another person might look at them. There's one final quality that Westwood uses to distinguish non-art from art, and that is the pursuit of perfection and the use of discipline. She defines perfection as a whole finished project with a beginning and end. This is, in all likelihood, just a way to keep things thrown together without the intention of creating something from being considered art. It's also useful because it distinguishes between things made for profit and things made for their own sake. Often, endings in things produced for a profit are left ambiguous so as not to prevent the making of a sequel or something similar. Rarely in works produced for profit do we see something coming to its conclusion while still popular. So what is art according to Vivienne Westwood? It's an anchor to our perception of reality and can help us make sense of the world around us. It is inextricably tied to the process of empathy that connects us to others. It is part of how we learn. And it is the key to resisting a mindless forward march and to unlocking true progress. All that being said, what are we meant to do with this information? Westwood has said on multiple occasions that she wants us to buy less, but in the manifesto she also includes a call to support the avant-garde and unpopular. This rallying cry can be found near the end of the text. Active Resistance says, "As we began by saying, artists and intellectuals have abdicated their responsibility. They wish to be popular instead of truthful to their vision of the world. We have no avant-garde. Art has never been popular. It is original and it takes time for people to see it. But where there is an avant-garde, others will follow. This gives culture." And according to the rest of the text, culture gives freedom. So what do you think? Do you agree with how she defines art, and do you think it can really save the world from global climate change? Do you think getting people to embrace this mentality would make it easier for us to enact actual policy changes? If you have any thoughts to share, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching this analysis of Vivienne Westwood's Manifesto. For more content like this, feel free to like, subscribe, and click the bell.